My mom slaps me at my engagement for refusing to give my $60K wedding fund to my sister. Growing up, I always knew that my sister Amanda was the favorite child. If Amanda wanted a new dress, my parents would scrape together their last dimes to buy it for her. If I needed new shoes for school, I was told to find a part-time job or wear Amanda's old, worn-out hand-me-downs. Amanda was beautiful, popular, and incredibly manipulative. She knew exactly how to twist my parents around her little finger, and she relished every single moment of it. Despite the constant emotional neglect, I didn't let their favoritism break me. I studied night and day, secured a full scholarship to a prestigious university, and immediately moved out the day I turned 18. I built a life for myself from absolute scratch. For 5 years, I worked 60 hours a week, climbed the corporate ladder, and lived below my means. I managed to save exactly $60,000. That money wasn't just a random savings account. It was my freedom fund. It was the money I intended to use to build a beautiful life, a stable future, and one day, a dream I was having with someone who actually loved me for who I was. And then I met Ethan. Ethan was everything I had ever dreamed of. He was kind, incredibly supportive, and loved me fiercely. After 2 years of dating, on a beautiful evening overlooking the city skyline, Ethan got down on one knee and asked me to marry him. I said yes without a single second of hesitation. We were ecstatic. We decided to host an intimate engagement party at a high-end downtown restaurant to celebrate our love with our close friends and, foolishly, my family. I thought that maybe, just maybe, for one night, my family could put their jealousy aside and be happy for me. But I was dead wrong. The night of the engagement party, the restaurant was beautifully decorated with white roses and fairy lights. My friends were laughing, toasts were being made, and I felt a genuine sense of happiness I hadn't experienced in years. Halfway through the evening, my mother and Amanda cornered me near the outdoor terrace, away from the rest of the guests. Amanda was holding a glass of expensive champagne, a bitter, resentful pout on her face. She looked at my diamond engagement ring with pure envy. "Well, look at you, elite corporate girl," Amanda sneered, swishing her drink. "Getting married to a handsome man, hosting parties at fancy restaurants. Must be nice to have everything handed to you." "I worked for every single thing I have, Amanda," I said calmly, refusing to let her ruin my night. "Nobody handed me anything." My mother stepped forward, her face twisted into a tense, demanding expression. She didn't congratulate me. She didn't hug me. Instead, she crossed her arms and got straight to the point. "Cut the attitude, Chloe. We need to talk about something serious. Amanda's fiancé, Derek, just lost his job last week. They already booked a massive luxury wedding venue for this fall, and the non-refundable deposit of $40,000 is due in 3 days. They are going to lose everything if they don't pay." "That's terrible," I said, genuinely feeling a bit sorry for Derek, though I knew Amanda's extravagant spending was the real reason they were broke. "But what does that have to do with me?" "We know about your $60,000 wedding fund, Chloe," my mother said, her voice dropping into a chillingly entitled tone. "Arthur told us you've been bragging about saving it. We need you to transfer that money to Amanda's account tonight. She needs $40,000 for the venue, and the remaining $20,000 will cover her designer dress and catering. You can always save up more money later. Amanda needs this right now." I stared at my mother, completely paralyzed by the sheer audacity of her request. She was asking me, the daughter she had neglected her entire life, to hand over my entire life savings, my hard-earned $60,000, so her favorite child could have a superficial luxury wedding. "Are you insane?" I whispered, my voice trembling with a mixture of shock and rage. "No, absolutely not. That is my money. I worked 2 jobs, skipped meals, and sacrificed my entire 20s to save that fund. I am planning my own wedding with Ethan. I am not giving a single penny to Amanda." Amanda's face turned bright red, and she dropped her glass onto the floor, letting it shatter. "Mom, see? I told you she was a selfish, greedy brat. She wants to see me fail. She wants to ruin my life. Chloe, you will do as you are told." My mother raised her voice, stepping directly into my personal space. "Your sister deserves the best. You have always been cold and detached from this family. This is your chance to finally do something right. Transfer the money, or you are no longer a daughter of mine. Then, I guess I am not your daughter, I said, looking her dead in the eye, my voice icy cold. Because the answer is no. Now get out of my party. Before I could even blink, my mother's hand flew across the air. A loud, violent slap echoed across the terrace. The sheer force of it snapped my head to the side, sending a blinding flash of pain across my cheek. I stumbled back against the brick wall, clutching my face, my skin burning, and tears of pure shock instantly stinging my eyes. You ungrateful, selfish bitch! My mother screamed, her voice carrying across the entire outdoor area. The heavy glass doors of the terrace swung open, and Ethan stormed out, followed by several of our friends. When Ethan saw me holding my bruised, red cheek in tears, and saw my mother standing over me with her hand still raised, his face contorted into a terrifying expression of pure fury. What the hell did you just do? Ethan roared, stepping between me and my mother, his massive frame completely shielding me. Get your hands off my fiancé right now. Stay out of this, Ethan. This is family business, my mother yelled back, completely unfazed by her own violence. She is refusing to help her own sister. She values her stupid money over her own blood. I don't care who you are, Ethan hissed, his voice dangerously low, his muscles clenching as he stared down my mother and a smirking Amanda. If you ever lay a finger on Chloe again, I will personally ensure the police drag you out of here in handcuffs. You are done. Both of you, get out of this restaurant before I have security throw you into the street. Amanda grabbed my mother's arm, suddenly looking terrified by Ethan's rage. Mom, let's go. She's dead to us anyway. Let her keep her miserable money. We'll find another way. My mother pointed a shaking, hateful finger at me from behind Ethan's shoulder. You think you've won, Chloe? You just wait. I will make sure everyone in our hometown knows exactly what kind of heartless monster you are. You will never have peace. They turned around and stormed out of the restaurant, slamming the doors behind them. Ethan immediately turned around, gently taking my hands away from my face to examine my bruised cheek. His eyes were filled with immense pain and concern. Chloe, look at me. Are you okay? We can call the cops right now. We can press charges. I looked at the shattered glass on the floor, feeling the sharp sting on my face, but suddenly, the crying stopped. The sadness completely vanished, replaced by a dark, simmering, and absolute resolve. My family had pushed me for the very last time. They wanted a war? I was going to give them a massacre. No, Ethan, I whispered, wiping the final tear from my eye, a cold, ruthless smile appearing on my face. Don't call the police. That's too easy on them. They want my $60,000. I'm going to use every single cent of that fund to buy up the debt on Amanda's luxury wedding venue, and I am going to destroy them from the inside out. The very next morning, the bruise on my cheek had turned a dull shade of purple, but the fire inside my chest was burning brighter than ever. I didn't waste a single second crying. I sat down at my kitchen table, opened my laptop, and pulled out my $60,000 wedding fund. Thanks to my job in corporate finance, I knew exactly how luxury wedding venues operated. Amanda's dream venue was the Grand Conservatory, an ultra-exclusive, high-end estate owned by a hospitality conglomerate that happened to be a major client of my firm. I called the regional manager, an old colleague of mine named Marcus, and got straight to the point. Marcus, I need a massive favor. I know the non-refundable $40,000 deposit for the upcoming Vance Derrick wedding is due in 48 hours. I also know that your parent company has been selling off individual event contracts to third-party investors to liquidate quick capital. I want to buy that specific contract. Marcus was quiet for a moment, the sound of his keyboard clicking in the background. Chloe, that's highly unusual, but it's completely legal under our investor program. If you pay the full $60,000 up front, covering the deposit plus the remaining $20,000 venue fee, we can legally transfer the entire property deed and event contract into your private LLC. You won't just own the contract, Chloe. For that weekend, you will literally be your sister's landlord and venue owner. Do it, I said, without a single shred of hesitation. Transfer the funds today. I want the paperwork signed by noon. By 2 p.m., a heavy legal document landed in my email inbox. I opened it and smiled a cold, ruthless smile. The Grand Conservatory was officially under my control for the weekend of Amanda's wedding. Amanda and my mother thought they could slap me, humiliate me, and demand my money. They had no idea that I had just used that exact money to buy the ground they planned to walk on. 2 days later, my mother called me. I hadn't spoken to her since the night of the engagement party. When I answered, her voice wasn't apologetic. It was smug, arrogant, and dripping with satisfaction. "I hope you're happy with yourself, Chloe," she sneered into the phone. "You thought you could ruin your sister's dream by withholding your money, but a real family always finds a way. Your father and I took out a second mortgage on our house, and Derek's parents emptied their retirement accounts. We just wired the $40,000 to the Grand Conservatory. Amanda is getting her dream wedding, and you are officially uninvited." "A second mortgage?" I asked, forcing a tone of fake surprise. "Wow, Mom, you really went all out for her." "Yes, we did. Because Amanda is worth it," my mother snapped. "Don't bother showing up. Security will have your name on the banned list. Enjoy your lonely life with your miserable savings account." She slammed the phone down. I lowered my cell phone, a dark laugh escaping my lips. They had mortgaged their entire lives away to pay that deposit. What they didn't know was that the bank account they had just wired that $40,000 into didn't belong to the corporate venue anymore. It had been instantly routed directly into my private LLC. My family had just handed me $40,000 of their own money, completely oblivious to the fact that I was the one holding the puppet strings. Over the next 2 months, I played the role of the defeated, outcast daughter perfectly. I ignored Amanda's constant, toxic social media posts showing off her designer dress, her expensive floral arrangements, and her captions mocking selfish people who try to gatekeep happiness. I let her fly high because I knew that the higher she flew, the harder she would hit the concrete. The week of the wedding arrived. Amanda had invited over 200 guests, including all of our extended family, local politicians, and my father's corporate associates. It was meant to be the ultimate showcase of my family's fake wealth. The night before the big day, I sent a formal legal notice from my LLC directly to the venue's on-site coordinator. The instructions were simple, legally airtight, and completely devastating. The morning of the wedding was beautiful, sunny, and clear. At exactly 1 p.m., 3 hours before the ceremony was scheduled to begin, Amanda, my mother, and the entire bridal party arrived at the Grand Conservatory. In a fleet of white limousines, Amanda stepped out of the car, clutching her $10,000 designer gown, flashing a massive, arrogant smile for the hired videographers. My mother walked beside her, looking like a queen mother, soaking in the luxury of the estate. But the moment they reached the grand glass doors of the conservatory, they found them locked tight. Standing in front of the doors were 2 large, uniformed security guards and a man in a sharp business suit holding a clipboard. It was Marcus, the regional manager, acting on my strict orders. "Excuse me, what is the meaning of this?" my mother barked, her voice echoing across the courtyard as the bridesmaids gathered around in confusion. "Open the doors immediately. The bride needs to get into the dressing suite. The caterers are supposed to be setting up." Marcus looked down at his clipboard, his face a mask of cold, professional indifference. "Are you Eleanor Vance?" "Yes, I am the mother of the bride," she yelled. "And this is Amanda the bride. Now open the doors." "I'm afraid I cannot do that, Mrs. Vance," Marcus said calmly. "As of 8:00 a.m. this morning, the owner of this property has officially canceled the Vance-Derek wedding event due to a severe violation of the contract's financial stability clause." Amanda's face instantly turned pale as a sheet. She dropped the train of her dress onto the gravel. "What? Canceled? Are you insane? We paid the $40,000 deposit. We paid the remaining $20,000 last week. You can't cancel my wedding. The contract you signed clearly states that the venue reserves the right to terminate any event if the hosting parties engage in fraudulent financial misrepresentation," Marcus explained, his voice entirely corporate and unyielding. "Our ownership team discovered that the funds used for this venue were secured through a predatory high-interest Sessions mortgage that is currently under legal dispute by the bank. The property owner has exercised their right to cancel the event to protect the venue from legal liability. No, no, no! Amanda began to shriek, throwing a massive, violent tantrum right in front of her friends and the caterers who had just pulled up. You can't do this to me. This is my day. Who is the owner? Call them right now. I will pay them double. I will sue this entire company. My mother was hyperventilating, her face twisted in pure terror. Listen to me, young man. We will lose everything. Our house is on the line. You cannot pocket our $60,000 and lock us out. The $60,000 fee is legally non-refundable under Section 9 of the cancellation policy, Marcus said, stepping aside as a black luxury sedan slowly pulled up the driveway, its engine humming quietly in the sudden horrified silence of the courtyard. The security guards instantly stepped forward and opened the back door of the sedan. I stepped out of the car. I was wearing a stunning, tailored white dress, looking more radiant, elegant, and powerful than Amanda could ever hope to be. Ethan stepped out right beside me, his arms sliding around my waist, his eyes locking onto my mother with a dangerous protective glare. The moment my mother and Amanda saw my face, their jaws dropped in absolute paralyzed horror. The silence that fell over the courtyard was so heavy you could hear the wind rustling through the trees. Chloe? My mother gasped, her voice trembling so hard she could barely form my name. What are you doing here? I walked up the steps, stopping just a few feet away from them. I looked down at Amanda's crumpled dress, and then looked directly into my mother's terrified eyes. I told you to get out of my party, Mom, I said, my voice icy calm, echoing with absolute authority that made her stumble backward. But you chose to slap me instead. You wanted my $60,000? Well, I used it. I bought this venue. Welcome to my property. Amanda let out a blood-curdling shriek, her hands slung to her head as she violently stamped her feet on the gravel. You bought the venue? Mom, do something! She's ruining my life. She's stealing my wedding. My mother's face shifted from pale white to a deep, toxic purple. She took a menacing step toward me, her hand instinctively rising just like it had at the engagement party. You vicious, ungrateful brat, how dare you do this to your own sister? I am your mother, and I command you to open these doors right now, or so help me. Before she could finish her threat or move an inch closer, Ethan stepped directly in front of her, his towering frame completely cutting off her path. His eyes were cold, hard, and dangerously fixed on my mother. I warned you once before about putting your hands on Chloe, Ethan hissed, his voice dangerously low but carrying across the entire courtyard, making the bridesmaids and caterers gasp. You are on private property right now. If you take one more step toward my fiancé, these security guards won't just escort you out. They will hold you down until the police arrive to lock you up for assault and trespassing. Try me. My mother froze, her raised hand shaking in midair before she slowly dropped it, terror finally breaking through her arrogant facade. She looked past Ethan's shoulder, her eyes wide with desperate panic. Chloe, please, you can't do this. We mortgaged the house for that $60,000. Derek's parents emptied their retirement. If the wedding doesn't happen today, we are completely ruined. We will lose our home. You should have thought about that before you slapped me for refusing to fund Amanda's entitlement, I said, stepping out from behind Ethan, my voice completely devoid of any warmth or mercy. You told me that family always finds a way, Mom. Well, this is my way. Amanda fell to her knees right there on the dirt path, her expensive $10,000 designer gown soaking up the mud and gravel. She began to sob hysterically, her perfect makeup running down her face in dark streaks. Chloe, please. Everyone is on their way. The local politicians, Derek's boss, all our relatives. If they show up and the gates are locked, I'll be the laughingstock of the entire city. Please, just let the ceremony happen. I'll pay you back, I swear. With what money, Amanda? I asked, looking down at her with total indifference. Your fiancé doesn't have a job, your parents' house belongs to the bank, and your sister is officially out of the charity business. You wanted to look like an elite luxury bride today, but the truth is, you're standing on my property, begging the sister you despised for a handout. Right on cue, the first few guest cars began pulling up to the main iron gates of the estate. When they saw the locked doors, the caterers waiting outside, and the bride crying in the dirt, the drivers rolled down their windows, whispering and staring in absolute shock. My father finally sprinted out from one of the parked limousines. His face drenched in sweat, he rushed up the steps, looking frantically between Marcus, the security guards, and me. "What is going on here? Chloe, why are you here? Why are the doors locked?" "Ask your wife and your favorite daughter, Dad," I said calmly. "They wanted to build a fantasy wedding using my blood, sweat, and tears. But the foundation of their fantasy just collapsed." My mother clutched my father's arm, hyperventilating. "Robert, she bought the venue. Chloe owns the contract. She canceled the wedding. Our $60,000 is gone." My father stumbled back a step, looking like he had just been hit by a train. He looked at me, his eyes pleading. "Chloe, please, I didn't know your mother slapped you at the party. If I had known, I would have stopped her. Please, don't do this to us. Think of the family reputation." "You did know, Dad," I countered fiercely, the icy venom in my voice cutting him off completely. "You saw the bruise on my face the next day when you called to uninvite me. You didn't care about the slap. You only cared that Amanda got her flashy venue. You all chose your side, and now you have to live with the consequences." I turned to Marcus and the security guards, giving them a definitive nod. "Marcus, please inform the arriving guests that the Vance Derrick wedding has been permanently canceled due to financial insolvency on the part of the bridal family. Security, clear my courtyard. I want these people off my property in 5 minutes." "Right away, Miss Vance," Marcus replied, with a respectful bow. The security guards stepped forward, their hands resting on their utility belts. "All right, folks, you heard the owner. Move it along. Back to your vehicles. The event is over." Amanda let out one final, defeated wail as her bridesmaids rushed to pull her up from the dirt, trying to shield her from the cameras of the arriving guests, who were now filming the entire humiliating scene on their phones. My mother looked at me with pure, unadulterated hatred, but she was completely powerless. She had to drag her crying, hysterical golden child back toward the limousines, surrounded by the whispers and stares of the very society people she had tried so desperately to impress. My father stood there for a second longer looking utterly broken, before slowly turning around and walking away. Knowing that their finances, their reputation, and their home were completely gone, I stood at the top of the grand marble steps, watching the fleet of limousines and guest cars slowly reverse out of the driveway, the heavy iron gates automatically sliding shut behind them, locking them out forever. Ethan wrapped his arms around me from behind, burying his face in my neck. "Are you okay, Chloe?" I looked at the beautiful, quiet courtyard, feeling the warm sun on my skin. The sharp sting from my mother's slap was completely gone, replaced by a profound, unshakable peace. "I've never been better, Ethan," I whispered, a genuine smile spreading across my face. "My family tried to break me, they tried to steal my future, and they tried to humiliate me. But in the end, they handed me the weapons to destroy them. My $60,000 was still safe in my account, my dream wedding with Ethan was still ahead of us, and my toxic family was finally exposed to the world for exactly who they were." The war was over, and the victory was absolutely sweet. 6 months after the disaster at the Grand Conservatory, the dust had finally settled, and the reality of my family's choices had caught up with them with brutal force. The public humiliation was just the beginning. Because they had defaulted on a predatory second mortgage within weeks of the cancellation, the bank moved forward with an expedited foreclosure. My parents lost their suburban home, the house I grew up in, and were forced to downsize into a tiny, rundown 2-bedroom apartment on the bad side of town. My father's small business completely collapsed under the weight of the bad press, and he was forced to take a low-paying job as a nighttime security guard, just to keep food on the table. Amanda and Derek never made it to the altar. The pressure of losing the $60,000, combined with the fact that Derek's parents lost their entire retirement savings, completely fractured their relationship. Derek's family blamed Amanda for her extreme greed, and Derek eventually left the state, leaving Amanda entirely single, completely broke, and stuck living in that cramped apartment with our parents. The girl who used to brag about her designer clothes now worked the morning shift at a local discount retail store, hiding her face whenever someone from her old high school walked in. As for me, the $60,000 I used to buy the venue contract was entirely recovered when my private LLC took over the property management rights for that quarter. I didn't lose a single penny. In fact, Ethan and I used those profits to fund our own wedding. Our wedding day was everything Amanda's wasn't. It was small, intimate, and filled with people who genuinely cared about us. I wore a simple, elegant vintage gown, and we exchanged our vows in a beautiful public garden surrounded by true friends. There was no media, no fake luxury, and absolutely no drama. My family was not invited, and for the first time in my life I felt what it truly meant to be surrounded by real unconditional love. The day after we returned from our honeymoon, I received a thick, handwritten letter in the mail. It was from my mother. I sat at my new kitchen island, sipping coffee, and opened it. The letter was a pathetic, desperate mess. She wrote about how sick my father was, how depressed Amanda had become, and how they were struggling to pay the utilities for their apartment. She didn't apologize for the years of neglect. She didn't apologize for hitting me at my own engagement party. Instead, she wrote, "You are an executive, Chloe. You have so much money. If you could just find it in your heart to buy us a small house, or give Amanda a job at your firm, we could finally put the past behind us. We are your family after all." I stared at the neatly written lines, feeling absolutely nothing. No anger, no sadness, and certainly no guilt. The girl they used to trample on might have felt a twinge of obligation, but that girl died the moment her mother's hand struck her face. I walked over to the kitchen trash can, dropped the letter inside without a second thought, and closed the lid. My phone buzzed on the counter. It was a text from Ethan. "Just ordered lunch for us. See you in 10 minutes, Mrs. Miller." A soft, genuine smile lit up my face as I grabbed my purse and walked toward the front door. My family had spent my entire life trying to wall me off from happiness, trying to make me feel like I was only valuable for what they could take from me. But by cutting the ties that bound me to their toxicity, I had unlocked a life greater than anything they could ever dream of. My name is Chloe, and I am finally completely free.